Hello, friends, and welcome to day 5 of the journey of the independent novelist. So, what we're going to talk about today is there are 3 things that your fantasy protagonist needs. 3 basic things. First thing, your protagonist needs something that he or she loves. Not only must this exist, but it must be very, very clear to the reader that your protagonist loves this one thing more than anything. Okay? And to see how the reason this is important is because that's how your readers connect with your protagonist emotionally. That's how they feel sympathy, empathy for that protagonist, is by seeing and feeling what that person loves. As an example of how that works out, in Lord of the Rings we have Sam, and he loves Frodo. He loves Frodo, and because of that love for Frodo, he is fiercely loyal and determined to get the job done, to stay with Frodo the whole way. And then Frodo, in turn, Frodo loves the world. He wants to save the world. He sees the importance of what he's doing because he sees beautiful, good things in the world that he wants to save. But interesting thing about that, notice how throughout the story, who falters the most? Frodo does. Frodo falters the most, and I think the reason for that is that Frodo's love is for this more distant thing, more abstract. His love is forced to encompass so much that it can't focus properly. So it's easier for him to lose focus. Whereas for Sam, his love is intrinsically more focused. It's focused on Frodo, and because of that, he's able to stay the course more easily because he has this very clear focal point for that love. In Stormlight Archive, Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight Archive, Kaladin loves his men. He has ideals, and as the story progresses, he learns to develop those ideals more and more. But fundamentally, he loves his men. He sees the men to his left and to his right, and he wants what is good for them. And that's what makes him such a strong character, is because he just feels this very close love. And it's not just a strong love; it is a love for people who are right there close to him. So it's very tangible to him, and then it's very tangible to the reader. And the second thing that your main character needs is vulnerability. Don't make your character invincible; it's boring. Now, a lot of times this vulnerability is tied to what that person loves. Like with Sam, his vulnerability is Frodo. And that's why, for example, if there's one thing you can say bad about Sam, I think it's maybe in his less than friendly way of dealing with Gollum. And why does he deal with Gollum in that way? Because he sees Gollum as a threat to Frodo. So their vulnerability, again, is usually tied to that thing that they love. But it doesn't have to be that necessarily. It can also be like a character flaw of some sort. Back to Stormlight Archive, Shallan is vulnerable because she has certain memories, certain experiences that still trouble her, and that actually lead to certain flies are attacking me. Lead to certain psychological problems. Third, your character needs a latent power of some kind that they need to discover. And I think that those first 2 points, I think, those are often points that are important for characters in all kinds of fiction, for main characters at least, in all kinds of fiction. But for this third point, I think this is particularly important for fantasy protagonists. There needs to be a latent power that they have to unlock. And of course, this requires mental, physical, spiritual, emotional struggle. Could be any or all of those. But throughout the story, they need to unlock that. They need to find a way. And that's one of the main struggles of the story, is to unlock that latent power so that they can then use it to go and defeat the big bad boss and all that stuff. And again, back to Lord of the Rings, there's this attempt to unlock that latent power by various characters. But an interesting thing is that whereas Sam succeeds, And Aragorn succeeds, and Gandalf succeeds. Frodo actually fails. In the end, the ring defeats Frodo. It does. But thankfully, Sam is there to save the day, even though Frodo is defeated by the ring. But that is, the development of that latent power, the unlocking of that latent power is very, very important. And as for my story, my main character in Wild River, his name is Bondas, and Bondas, his love in the beginning is, well, he loves his mother. You see that in the story, and because of his love for his mother and the sympathies that he has developed in seeing his mother live as a slave and suffer the things that she has suffered, causes him to have a general empathy for other people in the world, particularly women. But in the beginning of the story, his love is kind of like Frodo's love. It's kind of a broad, idealistic love. But as the story progresses, he starts to develop a love for a character named Errol. And you see that as that happens, that love that he develops starts to change him and starts to actually help him to unlock his power. And so again, this shows how closer connections, less broad and idealistic connections, more tangible connections of love, tend to actually have more power. Then with Bondas, his vulnerability that he has is, for one thing, he feels guilt for certain terrible things that he has done in the past. He's a good character, but when he was younger, when he was impressionable, when he was in difficult circumstances, he did some things that were very terrible. And the guilt of that has really affected him. And that is a big vulnerability for him. He also has self-doubt because he knows that he has failed in the past, failed to accomplish his goals, also failed to be a good person. And that realization is a big weakness for him. And that's something that he has to deal with. And his latent power that he has, that Bondas has, is that he's a seer. He has certain abilities to see things that other people cannot see, and there are certain limitations to that and everything. But he has this ability, and he gradually develops that ability throughout the story. But also, in addition to that, there's also a latent power to forgive himself and to love other people and to make more meaningful and stronger connections with other people, which is difficult for him in the beginning. These are all latent powers that he develops as the story progresses. And like I said, these videos that I'm making, this is all part of the journey of becoming an independent novelist. And what I mean by independent is that is actually earning a living as a novelist. I'm not doing that yet. I'm going to get to that point. I'm dedicated to it. I welcome you to join me on this journey. So if you're interested, if you want to see this happen, then subscribe and watch my daily videos, and we can go on this journey together.